Here's something else that I kind of wonder. Like, how can I say this? I don't stream on Twitch or anything, but one of the main reasons I split up my videos, I don't just like chat all day about like every single topic that comes to mind. If I'm like reacting to some, and not everything, but sometimes I post like specific reactions to other things happening on bigger channels because they're larger conversations that are like culturally relevant. The reason I think a lot of this is interesting because it gives like some sense of where the culture is in terms of like its pulse in relation to events that somehow are related to this community. The reason that I'm kind of talking about this is because I actually really like watching the 19 Keys videos, mostly because like I almost disagree, like I like 75% of the time I completely disagree with him, but then there's 25% of the time where it's like, oh shit, he's totally right, that's a really good point. For most of it though, I disagree with him, but also I disagree with like all of the other like there's I can't even point to any other communities and be like, oh yeah, because this is actually the community that I do believe in. So it's not necessarily about like politics where I'm trying to like encourage anyone to behave politically in any way. It's more like I wanted to create a space where it's clear that like my opinions and ideas are different than those that are currently present, and even like radically different. Like I wholeheartedly disagree foundationally. It's not just that it's weird, it's like very different. And like I think that it's interesting, more specifically because I remember when I first, not when I first started this channel, but like, yeah, it was pretty new. Like when I, first when I first started reading those articles, I would say, when I first started reading articles by writers who were way more, like their writers' voices were way more developed than mine, but I felt like they had points that were interesting that I hadn't heard being spoken about, like specifically a lot of the articles I was reading about feminism. And I think I made that playlist, so if you haven't seen those, go back and watch them. But I guess I started to like realize then that the space was novel because I'm me. Like it's because I was living in America. It's because I was living, or I'm from like, California. It's because of the way that I grew up. It's because of like who I am culturally or whatever, that by me saying this, it's like not the same as like some other woman saying this, even though we might have similar opinions. It isn't the same. And I wanted to create a community of people who did see themselves in me in some way, and then could relate to what I am saying because I am saying it. And that is the novel piece. And I thought that that is like critical, like that is important. Yeah. I think like the reason it seems, I think, novel now or like so different now is because there are some people who are just becoming familiar with this concept of streaming because it's so popular. And so now everyone is just getting online talking about everything all the time. All the topics have been like unpacked. Except how is it that I'm finding more and more people are coming here and saying or expressing how almost like grateful that they are to have this space. And it's like interesting because like, oh, I thought there were so many of these spaces already. everyone keeps saying that, you know, we already have this. If we have it, then how is it that I'm like saying something new? If we already have this, then my opinion should be the mainstream opinion, but it isn't. That's the point. So when the men are trying to gaslight you and basically say like, oh, there's all these like lonely people who are online, and they're like saying all these things, and they're trying to like get you to whatever they're saying, right? To try to prove basically that you aren't, that you need to join their communities. The problem is you're not a part of their community right now because it's toxic in some way, or it's like inaccessible, or it's just like not interesting. All of those could be real things. And also I just want to pinpoint the fact, like, when I first started talking about so many issues happening in my own life, like, a lot of people were really uncomfortable with the fact that I didn't have some positive story about my family members. Like, by me saying that, I'm the person who's wrong, right? Like, I'm so bad. Like, it's my fault, right? That, like, I don't have this wonderful relationship with my family members. That's interesting, because, like, a lot of their bad behavior or the lessons that they learned, like, I didn't cause them to be that way. They just, like, are that way, and, like, I'm learning how to deal with it. But, like, I didn't cause that behavior. All I did was talk about it, and because I talked about it, and I don't want to be in community with people who are gaslighting me and pretending like the bad behavior that is present is not present. Like, that's actually what I said. That's how I felt. But people are trying to make it seem like I am the person who's wrong for that. It's very strange. Yeah, it's really quite weird. I don't know. I guess it's just something to be like aware of, as it feels like, you know, I did read a comment today about a woman who was saying like, yeah, you know, like, I chose not to have children, and I'm, you know, I'm gonna focus on all these hobbies that I have. And she listed out like 6 hobbies, and I will say, like, some of that sounds very familiar. Like, when you start to go down this path of like decentering men, of like not being a pick-me-sha, not falling into this trap of like kind of what patriarchy wants you to do, and even not being like tied down by your core. So it's like you're not tied down by like the typical restrictions and burdens of a family, and you're also not tied down by the restrictions and the burdens of some job. Then you're just like free to literally explore and focus on all of your hobbies and passions. And I think that that is very strange for some people. Like, it doesn't feel, it feels weird to see on en masse a group, a community, a society of like women, I suppose, who are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna spend all my time doing a bunch of things that are simply interesting to me because I'm interested in those things, and I don't care about how anyone else feels about it. Like, that's weird. And I guess in the beginning, for me, it was really strange because I couldn't understand, and I continue to be confused about this. Like, why does anyone else care? That's the biggest thing that always like comes to mind for me. Like, I just sit and I wonder, I'm like, what, like, why would they care what I do? And then I realized it's because like the expectation of some other people and other groups, like they're making assumptions about where you're supposed to be. So the point of having a bunch of shows where we're not there, right, where there's no character who's fully developed, right, who looks like us, the point of that is so that, like, now other people in society can be like, oh yeah, just look at that, like, you know, just that human, she's not even just a thing over there, just female, just like, and then they can start writing their own narrative about what we're gonna do. Oh, they do this. Oh, they listen to this. Oh, they eat this. Oh, they go there. And then you sit there and look, you're like, no, but I don't. And they're like, no, you do, because I wrote a show about it, and then I put it on TV, and I played it to all the other groups. So you have to do that. And you're like, but I don't. But that's not me. And then what if none of us say anything? Who would ever say anything? What would we point to? What would we repost or share? What would we comment about? That's what I mean. Like, the point is, and the point that 19 Keys in his little video is missing, is that especially on this journey, especially if you are, you know, tied up in Pick Misha land, you don't have your right, you don't have a writer's voice yet. You aren't at a point where you're able to articulate your unique perspective, because you've never heard it come from someone like you. You've never heard someone talk about the nuance of your specific situation. The more and more content creators you watch who are like you, it will start to reframe not only how you see yourself, but how you talk about yourself and the words that you use. I will say this over and over again. This space is a middle space, but it's like a direct reference from Sensei Aishi Maitsu, who literally, I don't even know how the fuck I found her content, because nobody was making content like her. She explained so many things, right? And I just shout out to her. If you haven't, maybe you don't need to, just because I think I reference her content so well, and I watched it for so long that, like, it like literally helped me shape my voice. And then on the other side, there's like Kenya, right? It's like the third-year law student brain. And then there's like Kelly. It was just like, I'm so female. All of that coming together is like this. And then there's like my lived experiences and my own perspective. And then I just talk about like things that are interesting specifically for me. And the other thing I think is kind of interesting about that is, like, because I've done a lot of manipulating a little bit, not manipulating, but like, yeah, kind of like changing and taking stuff out to make sure it's palatable for me. I don't consume a lot of the stuff that's like mainstream for everyone else. So whatever is popular for them, I probably don't know, because I'm not watching or listening to that. And I also want to make sure that that's clear, so that, you know, you aren't under some assumption that like I know what you're talking about if you make some reference to someone who I've never heard of.